Yeah, my kittens. My kittens are torturing me.
Oh man. I went
Oh, my
away.
daughter's getting married this weekend, so that's exciting.
Oof, no wonder you're stressed.
I have it easy. I mean, I'm not really in charge of anything, so I just have
Oh,
to show up.
that is easy.
But it's a lot of, a lot of stuff. But
Hoopla.
it's exciting. So it's our second wedding for the year, so we're done now. So then we'll be on the watch for grandbabes.
Oh wow, that's exciting.
Yeah. But tell me I don't look like a grandma. Please tell me.
You don't look like a grandma at all. Possible. Grandmas are, I mean, I could be a grandma too. We could all be grandmas at like, you know, very young ages, technically.
True.
I was 49
It's
when I became
true.
a grandmother for the first time.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah? Who's that?
Linda, the front desk.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Linda. Hmm.
Nice. Well,
Well,
I
I
got
just put a
I'm gonna
listing
be
up.
57 soon, so
Oh, nice. I was gonna say I just put a listing up and it's one of those that's getting a bunch of showings and the first seasoned agent that goes, she goes and in the feedback she says it's overpriced. We'll send an offer for like 165. It's listed for 200. And I'm like, meanwhile, the offers are pouring in.
yeah.
It's like, yeah, I love that. Nice to see you, Chris. I can unmute myself.
They keep muting us. They want us to be quiet.
I know, impossible. Do they know who we are? We know how to turn ourselves off. They have to make it
I
unallowable.
only mute I only muted you once. That was it.
Oh my gosh, I keep getting muted. It's so funny.
No, I only did it once.
I don't know, maybe it's glitching, I'm sure. That's my catch phrase this week. Oh, it's our system is glitching.
You want to hook that up to yourself?
Seller's shield, it's glitching.
Everything's glitching. Yeah. That's a good
Right?
line to keep in your back pocket.
Oh yeah, that's been my thing this week. I'm like, oh, sorry, the system's glitching. But
There you go. Yep.
are you guys having trouble with the
So-
listing commissions?
So everything's still looking good.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
Not really.
That was Bob Hay, I think, but he wasn't answering me. I know, same, right?
Yeah.
No, I
Same.
still have people saying, well, what do you recommend?
Perfect.
So,
I
yeah.
recommend going with what I
Those
have
are my kind of
experience in.
clients.
Yeah, because I don't have experience in
good.
that other stuff. The zero to a buyer's agent, that's not something I have experience in, right?
Right.
It's like being a guinea pig. I don't want to be a guinea pig.
Thank you.
Cool. It's working.
All right, everyone on Zoom, we're going to mute you now and we're going to get started. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Hey, hi, Chris. Thanks for being here.
Hey, could I have one?
Yes, let me go grab it.
Because like I teach and all my lessons are on.
Oh.
Thank you.
No.
Thank you so much.
Okay, welcome all. Appreciate your time. Welcome, Chris Barrett. Vacation visitors bureau. I'm sure you've seen Chris on his acting career, which he has in television. And he's always seems like he's kind of a comedian on his head. Does a beautiful job. And I've known Chris since he came to the Poconos, and he's done a phenomenal job at building the tourist industry in the Poconos. And I appreciate, and everybody does appreciate the great work that you've done. Poconos was always on the map, but Chris put it on the big map.
Thank
Chris
you.
Barrett? Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you guys. Hope everybody online can hear too. I think I've did somebody. Admit from waiting room. Admit. Okay. So I put together a presentation here just to kind of talk a little bit about the Poconos because I think, and I realize just folks online too. So if anybody has a question about the presentation, let me know. But kind of like when you look at the numbers concerning what the Poconos is now and what it has been, it's kind of done a lot of significant things, especially since 2017. Just to give you a kind of idea of what's happened since 2017 is, and I have a slide in this later on, but the hotel tax. So, oh, sorry, I got it. I'll look back every once in a while. Or if you see somebody on there, let me know. I'll admit them. The Pocono Mountains Visitors Bureau is an association. It's a trade association. So we represent 590 hospitality businesses in the 4-county area: Carbon, Monroe, Wayne, and Pike. And in that area, we are funded by a hotel tax. So everybody who comes to Poconos pays a 3% tax. It's levied on each room on an overnight stay per day. So when my first year here, that number was 7.5 million. So last year, that number was 15 million. So if you would take, and I have the calculations on the slide, but just quick math, the variance is 7 million plus. Divide that by 3%, that gets you hundreds of millions of dollars more in revenue that's come in lodging in that time period per year. So when you look at that and you say to yourself, what's driven that? That's some of the questions I want to answer here. People often ask, where are they coming from? What are they spending? And why are they coming here? So the initial thought was that if I go to the commercials, they'd stay away. That was the original thought. But thankfully they didn't. And, I think there's a lot of things that it's really happening here. The pandemic honestly helped us. So people discovered and rediscovered the Poconos. And since that time, and we were actually on an upward trajectory, but if you look at the numbers between the time of the pandemic, 2020 to 2023, that's when the growth really accelerated. And there are other things too. So for instance, Kalahari added 1,000 rooms with a major indoor water park. Camelback built their property, added an indoor and outdoor water park. That's happened over the last couple of years. Great Wolf Lodge just doubled its physical plant. In fact, they were just sold for over $800 million, the whole chain. Yes, 800 million, yes. So they just invested 250 million in the Poconos. So within the last couple of years, since like say 2007-ish, there have been billions invested in our hospitality product. So Kalahari alone was a $600 to $700 million project. There really is nowhere in the state of Pennsylvania that anybody has invested $600 to $700 million in hospitality product, not even Hershey. So it's a significant product in a significant destination. So we're fortunate too that not only do we have that, but we have a number of other things located in the destination as well, right? Skiing, hiking, biking, 2 rivers. I can name, you guys could probably name things too I missed. But not only do we have the hardware, but we also have the natural beauty of the destination, which has really helped tremendously. And one other thing, sure, a Kalahari added rooms, Camelback added rooms, other properties added rooms, but without the additional short-term rental product, we would not have been able to accommodate the demand for overnight stays. So I can show you that too, because we subscribe to certain third-party data services that give us a little bit more insight on that, number one. But number two, we also, every year, we're doing a lot of things with Amazon Web Services. So we're able to year over year get more accurate data to be able, because with our budget, I'm sorry, I'm saying 3 things, excuse me. With our budget being 15 million, we're spending 9 to 10 million on hard media. So maybe a little bit more every year. So we want to make sure that we have the data that, I want to make sure that we have the data that we spend every one of those dollars to the best of its ability. And I can go in this a little bit later because it's a little geeky, but Amazon Web Services is unbelievable. So we're doing more and more and more with them. So to the point where we're almost to the point where if a commercial runs in Philadelphia, New York, we can tell whether somebody comes to the destination, stays, and the amount that they actually spend when they stay here. So then we continue to invest in those marketing vehicles to get that person to come back again and spend more, or a clone who is like that person to come to the destination and spend. So that's how significant the data is right now. We're able to get into that and market more effectively. So a couple of points. Okay, so a couple of points. I just put like a couple of basic points and I'll get into the numbers a little bit more. But what has happened over the last 2 years? Guests have become way more price sensitive. During the pandemic, I like to term it, there was a lot of stupid money out there, right? So people were just spending like crazy. We were seeing people visiting destinations, getting room service and ordering like 6 steaks, like dumb things. Things that they were never able to do before because there was a lot of pandemic cash out there. So of course that helped us. There's no question that it did. But now that that's all washed through the system, the inflationary pressures, the guest is becoming very price sensitive. What does that mean? That means that during the pandemic and afterward, they would pay any price for an overnight. Now they will not. They're shopping more. They're actually, looking at other destinations and comparison pricing. And plus, there's some trending that we're seeing is people are getting back to traveling more domestically and internationally. The dollar is really strong right now. So folks are traveling to Europe. Not only that, but the cruise industry is incredibly aggressive now. So that competition is rearing its ugly head right now for us and not helping. So the guest travel patterns have definitely changed. They're more dependent now on social media. And that type of trending to decide destinations, which we're very, very active on, that's changed dramatically since the pandemic. The technology working from remote locations, which we call bleisure, people can now blend work, right? And they can blend vacationing very easily, right? Because of all this technology. So that's been good for our industry. However, things are starting to go back or normalize a little bit. We call it normalizing, where and all of our industries, I think, are comparing to 2019 when that was the last normalized year. So we're starting to see a little bit more of our attendance patterns look like they did in 2019. So people are becoming more or wanting to visit more like on the Friday and Saturday versus a Sunday through a Thursday. Before, it didn't matter what day it was. They were just coming no matter what, and they were paying anything. Didn't matter. So that's definitely changed. There's still some of that, but not a lot. I talked about this. The short-term rentals has really, really helped us dramatically for a number of different reasons. That's not only particular to us, but it is across the country as well. There is more selection of short-term rental inventory. There's more inventory out there. There are more selections. So, but without it, like our market's a little bit different. Without it, we would have not been able to grow as much as we did. So it's a really important component of our product. I'll show you the numbers later. And as I said, we've kind of really maintained post-pandemic growth. So everybody asks, okay, what do numbers look like up here? So we host 30 million guests a year. In Monroe County alone, 22.5 million guests visit just this county alone in a full year. So by far, this is the highly visited county in the Poconos. It generates 5.1 billion annually in total revenue. Only 35,000 individuals. We have 64% of the labor income. We'll talk about that in a second. And there's what it generates in federal, local, and state taxes. And we did some of our own studies as a state. We partner with the state quite a bit. DCED is in charge of tourism in the state. And I could talk a little bit more about that later, but we partner on studies with them. They get actually access to real tax data. So it's fairly accurate. Tourism economics does it. They use Oxford economics data as well as the states. So without our industry, everybody in the Pocono Mountains would pay $1,500 more in taxes, either whether it's state, federal, or local taxes. So state and local obviously are the big ones, and I can show you where they're spending as well. So one of the things, these are just very quick things. Substantial investment in our ski infrastructure has been ongoing over the last 2 to 3 years. One of the things that's not very well known is our area and our industry here in skiing has been on the cutting edge of generating snow, like since they started making snow. Like our industry here has been ahead of the curve. And over the last 2 years, all of the properties have generated like tens of millions of dollars in new snowmaking equipment that's very environmentally conscious and incredibly efficient. So they don't actually have to have it snow. They can make snow, but the temperature just has to be correct, the temperature and the humidity. So that's a huge investment in our industry as well. It didn't even calculate in a couple of numbers I just told you. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. So actually, Great Wolf Lodge, that addition's 250 million. So I forgot to change it. Resurgence in small towns. We've seen a huge interest in our small towns. Milford, Honesdale, Hawley, Stroudsburg, Jim Thorpe. So just to give you an idea, Jim Thorpe has a visitor center in the center of town. We operate that. We get 500,000 people a year through that visitor center. Most visitor centers are declining and closing. Ours are increasing. So we operate a few of them across the footprint of the Poconos. That's absolutely the highest visited visitor center here in the Poconos. And a lot of it is driven by A, the beauty of the town. It's just gorgeous, and everything's there. But B, it's the train attraction. The Northern Reading is an incredible, like that story is just that one probably, Bob. That one's like, it's totally, the guy's like, he's an entrepreneur. He made his money in selling silver in the 70s and he retired and he just decided he was going to buy the whole Conrail thing when they were dumping all the track. He just started to buy local lines because he liked trains. He absolutely knew nothing about them. And then stupid money, but he turned it around and he built a railroad and he started, like, I think they own like 400 miles worth of track. And now anthracite is really starting to come back and they haul a tremendous amount of anthracite. I think they get sent to China. So they're doing incredibly well, but they also run a passenger service. So little fact is we would be the only region to have 3 passenger services: Sturbridge Line, Northern Reading, and if we get Amtrak, which we will, that'll be 3. That'll be 3 passenger lines in our market, which like nobody else in the country has that. And Steamtown. So that's not actually in our market's close, but so they do. So they actually, the nice thing about the gentleman that owns this, and Bob actually knows more about this than I do, they access each other's lines whenever they can. And he's constantly buying new lines. So he's connecting like to Makwa, to Jim Thorpe, to Whitehaven, to Pittston. And I think they want to connect to Scranton at some point in time. Okay, that I don't know. But they own other lines as well, and they're buying other things as well. So Carbon is doing incredibly well with those types of attractions. And Jim Thorpe, from a small town perspective, is probably the biggest, I would say, like of all of our small towns. Like, as when you look at Stroudsburg, I mean, I look at it when I came here in 2017. I really credit Tara Probst. I mean, she really tried to turn that town around, and it needs still a little bit more work, but it's way better than what it was when I came here. And all the other towns are just like Honesdale and Hawley. The thing of it is, in the pandemic, there were a lot of second houses here and people just moved back, as you guys probably know. And they actually occupied those houses. So they brought like all those big town experiences to small towns and opened up all kinds of small businesses like in Honesdale, Hawley, that are like actually pretty cool that you would see in a big city. So, pardon me, if you're ever in the market and you can get to Honesdale or Hawley or Milford, they're really cool towns if you've never been there. Another big one, Swiftwater opened on 611. Gorgeous property. It's absolutely 4 diamond. It might actually be 5. but it's just an amazing property, like an old time resort where there was a concierge that planned everything for you. The quality of the rooms are top notch. Like they're, I think it's higher than like a W, Marriott W. It's just very, very high quality. The Olivet restaurant's a little small, but again, very high quality, very high touch. If you ever get a chance just to stop out there and look around, it's an amazing property. In fact, I'm sad it's not a little bigger. Swiftwater on 611 is right to Saki. It's the name of the hotel. Yes, it is. It's located in Swiftwater. That's the name of the hotel. So if you know where Dasaki is, the restaurant, it's right there. So they do. Yeah, they're owned by the same owner. And actually, like there's some other plans for that strip there and a couple of other. So yeah, and there's a lot more plans for that, but which would be great for the Poconos. But anyway, it's a very, very high quality operation. It's extremely high quality. So we operate our own television network. So if you see billboards for PTN, that's the Pocono Television Network, we operate that. So I got to update those numbers a little bit, but we're now in over 8 million homes in 4 states. So we're on 15 cable systems. We're on Blue Ridge Cable. We're over the air in a transmitted signal in Philadelphia, Harrisburg, Lebanon, Lancaster, York. All it is a 365, 24/7 content related to the Poconos and why people should visit here. And also we have our own YouTube channel. We're on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV. We're adding more all the time. That's really in our industry and basically everywhere streaming is. We buy a lot of linear television, but streaming is kind of where we want to go. So what we found out, because some of the platforms are very robust with analytics, if we get somebody to watch or download the Pocono Television Network on Roku, they'll watch it at a minimum the first time for 2.5 hours. And then they will continue to watch it. So, because we change out the content all the time. And we also have a television show, Pocono Mountains Magazine, that runs in a number of different markets. It's a 51-minute program that runs on WBRE, WYOU, Philly 57, Fox 56, WHTM 20. There's a number of different places it runs, but it's just content related to the Pocono Mountains. That's it. And it's a separate show that runs on PTM, but it also runs on it's syndicated into other networks.
Sorry, they can't see on Zoom.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. That's oh, thank you so much. That's all right. Thank you. So all my lessons are on there teaching ESU. And this is just what it looks like on Blue Ridge. So, you can get it, as I said, on a number of different channels all across the state, actually through Maryland, Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. We're adding a couple more systems out west. We just added 2, and we're about this close to getting on Comcast. So if we get on Comcast, we'll have access to 18 million households. So keep your fingers crossed on that one. I put that in every presentation because I just think it's coming. And that's probably like one of the greatest things that can happen to us in our industry is to have that. So, and I know Bob and a lot of people were, keeping the home fires burning for decades, but that's going to be a huge game changer for us in a number of different ways. We're going to have access to markets where people don't have cars, that live in Long Island and in the city. It's a good quality of life thing for us too, obviously, but it's great for that. I think you're going to see more development at one of the stations that's proposed. So I think it would be great for us. I know it's going to be great for us over time. So I keep the faith on that. So one of the things I wanted to do is, this is a little dated. I apologize. I didn't get a chance to update this before this, but this is an example of some of the, and I'll pick certain information out so you're not, because it's a little squinty. And I'll leave you guys with this presentation. In fact, I'll update these to the most updated numbers, and then I'll send the presentation so you guys can see it. But I'll just pick out like little points of it. This is Pennsylvania travel spending. I just wanted to show the trend line, and you can see that up top, US versus the state, the blue versus the red line. You can see since January, of course, 20, how much travel spending has increased, and it continues to increase. Because people are prioritizing their time. They're prioritizing leisure time where they really didn't before, right? So that's a trend that's absolutely helped our industry quite a bit. And the two things that really are tails of the tape for our industry is occupancy and average daily rate. So on this chart, you're seeing occupancy index and ADR index. So this is a chart through tourism economics to the left that shows occupancy trending. Of course, in 2020 was at 64% because we were all shut down. I'm surprised it even got to that. But this year it's projected to be at 100%. So the travel industry has come back. There's no question about it. And the rates that we're getting per room are fairly good. Also, too, the RevPAR, which is revenue per available room, has grown dramatically since the pandemic as of November, or actually it's actually December of last year. So we're seeing a lot, despite the slowdown, everything is still fairly strong. So this is Pennsylvania data. We're able to look at weekday versus weekend trend as far as restaurant demand for, like, for instance, I could tell you that reservations in Pennsylvania for that week were down 5.4%. So we compare that to our market to see where we're going. And I'm going to show you a slide on that a little bit later. But also shows where some of the occupancy rates are day versus day. And then we have some other marker cities down there too, which we don't really look at very much. So this is the big one. This is our domestic visitor profile for 22. This isn't 100% correct because our calculation showed that our visitor spending is much higher. The top two are not as high, but these are the two that this is the column that we always look at: top trip purposes, top activities, and our top origin market. So 31% of visitation is from New York, 25% of the visitation is from Philadelphia. So when you add those two up, over 50% of the guests coming here do not live here, which means every dollar they drop in this market is brand new and would not be here if it wasn't for tourism. In Pittsburgh, the others are very, very small, but close to about 60% of all the dollars that come into this market are outer market, and that's what you want. The other thing they never did, which I never really understood this, is they never advertise in their own backyard market. That's why we run television here, because our market is huge. So Wilkes-Barre Scranton is actually 18 counties in the state. Now, 4 of them are contained here, but the balance of them are not. So we still get visitation within the state from like Pittsburgh and other places. Also, too, we spend money in Harrisburg, Lebanon, Lancaster, York as well. So the top activities like shopping, sightseeing, swimming, that changes depending upon the time of the year. And top trip purposes are, I'm sorry, let me talk about this one. 8 and 10 overnight visitors are repeat visitors, 8 and 10. So if we can get a guest to be interested in our market, they'll repeat visit. But we have to keep reinforcing it with advertising or offers, either one. We also subscribe to, and this is January to November of 23, we subscribe to a number of services that poll spending from credit cards. And the transactions, like it's 12.3 million transactions within our marketplace, which is a fairly strong sample. So we can postulate a lot of different things looking at this sample. 34% of the credit card spends are on food and beverage. So when you see our commercials, you'll see more food and beverage images. That's very calculated because when people come here, they want to eat, right? They want to eat, they want to spend on retail. That's kind of what they want to do. So 2 of the biggest spends are on retail and foods. Now, obviously the price of those things has gone up. Okay, so that's a determinant here. But basically people absolutely want to eat when they get here and they want to spend on retail. Yes. Some of it does, yes. Yeah, their categories are a lot more broader. Like we would probably classify it differently. Thank you. That's a good question. Yes, it does. So it characterizes that a little bit more broadly than we would have liked, but we can't get them to drill down to that. Maybe at some point we will. That also represents 695 million in spend. Again, a lot of that is outer market. And it gives the top origin places for this point in time. And another thing too is percent of, so one of the things that we do is when we market, there is something we call, like you guys are, understand it's too, demographics, right? So our demographic or our ideal demographic is a female aged 25 to 54 with a household income of 100,000 plus. I've been in the business like 35 years, and females make all the travel decisions and they do all the planning. So if you can touch a female and convince her to do it by pulling on heartstrings and emotions, that's what you're trying to do. Well, you know, I mean, not like that. So, but the other thing too is, and this makes sense, I would think, is look at the income levels too. So over 100,000 household income, because let's face it, some of these activities are not inexpensive. So you have to have some disposable income. So you can see that the share by income goes up a lot after $100,000. And you can see the age ranges from 30 up. This is a very interesting one because we're seeing a lot of trending with grandparents bringing their families here. The Woodlock, for instance, they'll pay for the whole week for the whole family, or Kalahari or Camelback. So this data gives us like clues on what our creative should look like and where we should spend and how we should spend. Now, this is significant because these folks are still not cord cutters and they're still watching some degree of linear TV, although that's declining like pretty dramatically. The pandemic got people more used to streaming who didn't stream before. So, and it got them more used to technology than what it did before. So, you know, we understand that, and we've kind of accelerated what we're doing with our streamer with Pocono Television Network in order to keep a little bit ahead of that curve and get the message out there. But you can see that that's what the spend share by age. As soon as you hit 30, it really increases like pretty dramatically. So from age 30 to 64, that's like close to 60%. So if we can get those folks to really, you know, say, this is a great product, please spend, you know, that's how it all happens. So this slide is a further breakdown. And when we first saw it, we looked at it and we thought, what in the hell is this? Okay, so you can see again, food and beverage and retail, and there's a category breakout on some of this. Now this was 1 month, so this could change. Retail is absolutely the recreation experiences, but when we looked at the merchant names to the right, we looked at it and said, Walmart, Home Depot, and Weiss, like why? So what it was spends for short-term rentals. So people were coming into the market, hitting Giant, hitting Walmart, hitting Weiss, buying whatever they had to buy, maybe Lowe's, maybe Home Depot, and going back to the unit, which totally made sense. And then, of course, the Sunoco,
Excellent.
okay. I know, that's what we kind of said. It's like, what is this? And Wawa appears a lot because, you know, the Philadelphia connection too, but like Sam's, Kalahari. So Kalahari is 3% of the spend. So we can get it that closely. But here's Giant, everything else. You can see just how that comes out. But when we first saw it, we're like, what the hell is that? You know, and then we looked at the category breakout here. Well, gas stations make sense, right? Food stores make sense because we can see it in the merchant names, hotel, motel, but Interior finishing stores, 12%. You know, so when you dig into this a little bit more, it's kind of interesting. And the drinking place, alcohol beverage, that's which I thought that would be a lot higher. But people, yeah, so it could be involved. Yeah, yeah. And I'm not sure how good that is. But anyway, and oh, Raceway. So when you look here, Pocono Raceway. Probably. We can get to individual spending. We can get to individual spending if you like. One of the other things we do too is, for lack of a better term, we subscribe to another service. We drop a pixel on everybody who actually comes to our website, so we can tell where their phone sleeps by their IP address, and when it moves within our destination, it kicks a following and tracking service, and then we plug back into the data. Well, every time.
Don't go on the site.
But that's right. Every time you download data or you download an app, you're agreeing to have your data mined and used, right? So that's kind of I hate to say it, the cost of admission. But what it does is it verify. Anytime you could get multiple data sets to verify your expected demographics or what you think it is, there are different sets of data. That's great. So this absolutely, it added another data set. This absolutely justifies everything we've ever seen. So New York, 39%, Pennsylvania, 27, New Jersey, 24. Okay, that's northern New Jersey. So, which includes parts of, it's actually within the Philadelphia DMA, but I don't want to. So you could, if you add up those numbers, you know, a lot of the revenue, now you'd have to discount a little bit at 27. A lot of the revenue is absolutely out of market. Now, these are all short-term rentals and Kalahari. Because the phone slept at Kalahari or Coolbaugh, Middle Smithfield, or Kalahari. So we can get Camelback, East Stroudsburg. They categorize East Stroudsburg as a larger region than what it actually is. We even know if they stayed in a hideout in Wayne County. So, and Great Wolf Lodge, some of the bigger. So actually day trips were at 499,000. The average stay was 2.7 days. That's actually gone down a little bit. It was at like 2.9 at the height of the pandemic. And that related into a 5% decrease in overnights. And then this just kind of graphically shows it to you like really quick so you can see it. And the other thing we do, I'll just go just real quick. We track the GDP of other states so that we could just kind of, if we see a trend coming, we can kind of react to it, you know, and forecast it. So we follow PA's GDP. We also follow New York's, New Jersey's. This is just some of what it looks like. And also what it indexes to its specific categories, like arts and entertainment, accommodations, retail trade. We get all those numbers so we can see, because we look at anything that's related to disposable income. So if we start to see it go like this, we kind of know it's coming, and there's something definitely coming. Now, people say, okay, what does this mean for us? So this is, I think you've seen this one, Bob, probably a couple times. So this one is a graphic of where the hotel tax comes from. And this is like since 2019, yes. So since 2000, Monroe's absolutely been the number one. Carbon's actually starting to pop up, and I'll get to a little bit about that later, but Pike does pretty well. Wayne is the outlier, but Wayne's a beautiful area. And this is updated for this year. I've updated these. So graphically, this is what it looks like. And this is up the first 2 quarters of this year where we are. Carbon's like actually doing really well. And that's because of the more addition of short-term rentals. This compares the first and second quarter of since 17. This was the number I was citing. So the first 2 quarters of 17, we did 3.4 million in hotel tax revenue. This quarter we'll do 6.7 million. For those 2 quarters, it's doubled. Now we're down a little bit, absolutely, but we're still holding strong based upon, you know, the previous years and especially 19. So if you look at 19, it's still $2 million higher. So yes,
You said carbon. Maybe how much STR things.
I'd have to pull that one up. I haven't seen that pop up. They're getting extremely restrictive with ordinances, not as much in Carbon. In Wayne, they're incredibly restrictive. Pike, Wayne is incredibly restrictive. So one of the largest, well, what happened is one of the largest properties there initiated one of the first hardest ordinances by an HOA related to the ordinance hideaway. Now they're bringing it back because everybody's trying to sell their properties, you know, and the thing was, don't do that because your property values, oh, we don't care, we don't want these people here, you know. Now all of a sudden people are trying to sell their properties, so now they're dropping it. So, you know, it's, I talked to him. Yeah, he's a good guy. He's pretty sharp too.
He's
He's pretty sharp though. Like there's actually like the hideaway. There was just I think they're going to appeal it, but the township lost that one. There was something that happened there. He actually sent me it. I have the opinion, but they rescinded something, which really I thought was a blow to, like, you know, to the townships. You know, I always thought that was a little unconstitutional. I was like, how do you tell a homeowner what to do? Boy, they passed that, you know. So but now I think it's stepping back just a little bit, and I think a lot of reasons for that. But part of it is, I think, property values, right? You guys would know that more than I do, but that's kind of what we thought. We have to be very careful with that. We absolutely support short-term rentals and think they're important. So anywhere we go, we have the data and we show it. But I mean, we have to be very careful because there's like two sides to that coin, you know. No matter how our personal feelings are, we just have to be really careful about it. When they've asked us to come in and testify or do things like that, we've done it. The state right now is undergoing, they're putting a commission together to study, because I think they're starting to realize how big it is. And, you know, whether they should regulate it or support it. Like, and we're always like, no, we need to support it because this is how big it is. If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't be where we are now. So this administration is actually pretty good. They get how important tourism is. Like the Wolf could care less. You know, like, oh, we're closing, who cares? I mean, for this administration, they're pretty good, you know. So that's that. I have a couple more so what I do is just to show how we're doing right now. Our numbers are starting to decline a little. Now, occupancy for 2024, and this is as of August, our occupancy was up, but we had a lower rates. So our rates are starting to decline. So they have to lower rates now much more to be able to obtain an increased business, which is normal and is a little bit of a slowdown. And honestly, but the demand is up 3% for rooms because your occupancy is up. It's interesting that, you know, I think the pandemic was an anomaly, and I'm actually really surprised we're still doing as well as what we are. I mean, you know, I'm not questioning it, but it was an anomaly. Like, we didn't think it was going to last 3 years. And it's almost lasting 4 years. Thank God, because it employs a lot of people. So we employ like 35,000 people. It's a big industry. This is one I wanted to show. So these numbers are short-term rentals only, and as you can see, they're all in the green. Okay. Now the numbers as far as rooms are smaller slightly, but anywhere from 40 to 45% of our inventory, I would say 40. About 40% of our inventory comes from short-term rentals. And now there were some anomalies. I have to be careful how I say this, but Carbon was the only county in the first 2 quarters that was up both quarters in hotel tax. The other two, Monroe was absolutely down because they had to give more revenue. They had to yield more revenue. But Carbon was way up, which is kind of really interesting. So there's still a demand for the product, but if it wasn't for occupancy rates up 10%, this was August, that's a huge number. You don't see that very often. revenue's way up, average daily rates up. So basically, we had more people and they were willing to pay more. So if you look, if I can show this slide before. Okay. So our average rate this year is 220 per room. It was 260 last year, right? That was down 15%. Now, the average daily rate with short-term rentals is at $415. That's $200 more. That now, sometimes it's a different product, but it's significant. So people will pay for a product like that, which is really, really interesting. To me, that's interesting.
Does that because short-term rental is 2 to 6 bedroom?
Yes.
It's really 2 to 6
Yep.
versus one book.
But which,
Paying price base for 3 times.
and that's interesting, right? Like you said, you can put more people in there. It's not, you notice more because you guys do this more, but we find that even people that are 1 or 2 people still do it. You know, where they could go to a Kalahari or they could go wherever, they're still doing short-term rentals. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of, I can get my whole family here versus the suite at Kalahari and something like that. But, you know, there's more room, you have more amenities like around the buildings, like all those kinds of things. And it's, and I would say, there's a heck of a lot of operators out there that are incredibly professional. You know, the association that these guys are involved in, they're incredibly professional, best practices. There's a lot of great things you can say. Yeah, I mean, like years ago, where there was those goose firing off fireworks and doing all those kind of things, it kind of ruined it for everybody. But I mean, there's a lot of good things happening, I think, that are plugging into these numbers, being as good as what they are, which is kind of cool. Oops. Okay, so this, I think, my final 2. So what I did is I took the differences in hotel tax revenue to show you. So it's from the big one from was 1 year, the 64% increase from 20 to 21 in the tax. And we've really retained it pretty much. And then what I did was I took those numbers and divided it out to say, okay, how much in 3 years? It's probably closer to 700 million. How much revenue is new now because of this increase? And it's probably now about 650 million. So there's 650 million more dollars in lodging revenue. That's it, in our 4 counties than there was in 2017. So, well, that's an interesting point. So we've had a lot of townships talk to us. We have a grant program that we put out for our townships to try to help them. But our point is, well, if you don't have this revenue, where are you going to get it from? You know, they're still getting a 6% tax, the local taxes. The other thing too is when you employ 35,000 people, there are wage taxes that are going to the municipality. Now, there are things we do help them with. Like they'll come to us and say, can you help us with this? And we do. But my point is, like, there are 10 regions in the state that, you know, that the state looks at to garner tourism numbers. 64% of our labor income in this market in the 4 counties comes from tourism and hospitality. That's not typical. I think the highest region probably is Dutch Country Roads, which is Hershey, Lancaster, and Gettysburg. I think it's like, and that's with the state there. It's like 30%, 29%. So we're almost double that. So we're employing a lot of people up here, you know. Now, is that good? I mean, our industry should be diversified, you know, and honestly, like one of the things that we're really pushing forward is we want to get somewhere with recruiting or bringing in the market attainable and affordable housing. Is we need to diversify our industries, you know, and we can't. There have been a lot of people that have looked at this market, but the housing is not there. Like Microsoft was looking at carbon and said, nope, can't do it. There's no housing. So they went somewhere else. I mean, we can't keep losing industries like that, you know? We got to do something. and that's fine, but we need to start. We need multifamily housing units like in, because actually like um, Great Wolf was not going to invest that 250 million because they came to us and they said there was the other reasons too. But one of the big reasons was they said, look, we're either going to put 10 million into our property and reface the building, put a new roof on it, little touches here or there, or we're going to put 250 million in it. Why? And then they said, well, guess what? We can't find housing. If we want to increase our workforce by 1,000 employees, where are they going to live? Where are they going to come from? So we almost lost a $250 million project because of that. And actually, like Kalahari is looking to expand again. But it's given the economy, to be fair, the economy is giving them a little bit of pause, which but the second piece of it is they had to build housing on their property. Now that's a short-term solution. Like you have to, the other thing too is there's a misnomer. There's some bartenders at Kalahari, they're making like $90,000 a year. I mean, they're good, and that's what everybody, our industry has to pay good living wages. It has to. Now, one time it didn't, which was wrong, but things have changed like dramatically. So you have two people like that work, say Kalahari, one works at maybe Kalahari, the other works Camelback. One's making 25, the other's making 20 an hour, whatever it is. That's $45 an hour. That's a living wage, but they can't find anywhere to live or even rent, and that's even killing our industry.
It kills everything. Coming to the development. Especially when somebody looks at an area, housing, work.
So one of the things that we tried to pitch to is I talked to Gary Olson about, we need a 4-county economic development corporation. We're actually going to propose doing something with housing. We're having a summit on 11/20 with as many people as we can get from all 4 counties to push out a solution. Like we don't want to keep glorifying the problem. Probably want to try to do something about it. But even get a 4-county economic development corporation and try to really, like when I heard we lost Microsoft, I couldn't believe it. There's somebody huge that is looking at Herschel's Creek, and I'm not sure that's going to happen either. And it was housing. So we have to do something. Bob, bringing the train.
Yeah, that's a complicated issue because.
My God, yeah, it is. Yeah.
Because the land use, we just had this conversation yesterday, the land use is really, in Pennsylvania, is the local government.
It's kind of interesting. We had Steiger. You were at the SU thing, right? So we economic summit at the SU.
Yeah.
Okay. So we had Steiger there last year, and this is the first time I ever heard anybody from DCED say this. I almost fell over. He said, we may have to reform zoning at the state level because they realize, like there was and I'm not sure what's going to happen with this, but there was somebody looking at going into a township in Carbon, and somebody opened up a Facebook account like to try to fight it, because we have a lot of NIMBYism too. And that's going to kill us too, and the developer just might pull out and go somewhere else where they're more accepted. And that's happens here quite a bit. And like some of these townships can unreasonably withhold zoning, however, a lot of people say, well, why are there all these, what are you guys going to do about all these warehouses? And I'm like, well, guess what? Those landowners have rights too, we didn't recruit something else, but we got a warehouse, and that's just, I'm sorry.
Their job, they're staying here, which is what you want. I mean, you go past where the bus stop is, that bus stop. There's a lot of cars there, and the one that are all headed to New York. So if we had the housing here, those companies, whatever, come here. We could keep the revenue here.
And Bob knows more about this than me. I shouldn't really even opine on this, but I think what happens is like all these warehousing operations get these huge tax incentives, and then like when they go away, they move the operation out. And that's that just kills the local communities.
Right.
Mhm.
Seeing they lost their tax benefit and he's gone,
But there's a new tenant.
but yours will be tenant.
And that's millions of dollars in tax. Well, if you're talking about the warehouse and Green,
Yeah.
that now has a tenant.
Doesn't count?
Doesn't have a tenant.
So that's good.
Big one on, the big one on, in North Pocono has a tenant, or has a tenant. So, yeah, but, you know, there's no doubt that warehousing, they're not, you know, I deal with this conversation, and the zoning talks about warehouse, and that's how they build it, but they're not really warehouse, they're distribution. So the difference is the warehouse stays, if you go to the Walmart distribution center, you'll see that one side of the building has the incoming truck, it goes all by conveyor belt, and trucks on the other. And that's what creates all the truck traffic. But people that complain about all the warehouses, and see people that have product the same day or the next day.
That's what I said to my daughter. I'm like, I said to my daughter, I'm like, do you really need that $350 necklace tomorrow? You know, it's like, which is really crazy. But no, you're right about that. And you know, I know that, like, say with Kalahari, they got some significant tax incentives, right? Like school tax, they got a couple other things, but they're not going anywhere. You know.
No, they don't.
Can you hear us on Zoom, guys?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hi, okay. So we can't hear the questions. I don't, if it's possible to share the microphone, that would be lovely for the questions out there. And then,
Sorry about that.
no, it's okay. It's okay. When you are ready to run through the municipalities as well, Chris, if you want me to list them for you, or I think you're usually rapid fire everything pretty quickly. So if you need my help with anything, just let me know as far as that goes.
Thank you. Yeah, we the one thing we want to try to do, and I want to encourage, like, I know there's a lot of folks online, a lot of folks here, is if you could, and I'll send Bob and Jess, I'll send this to you too. If one of the things that we really, even if you could just come on 11/20, it's like $25, but to come to the summit, we just need to get as many people there as we can, like we did with the rail rally, and just like Saigar actually to come, because I don't know if you heard, the governor announced a new housing initiative. So if there's any, that would be one thing, if any of you guys could come to that, even though I'll comp you tickets, it's $25 just to cover some of the cost. Keller Realty is going to like sponsor it with a $4 million grant, which I was really surprised about. But seriously, if you guys could come, I would really appreciate that. Or anybody, like one of your realtors or anybody who you know is interested in it, in this process, we'd love to have you. It'll be a Kalahari, and I'll send the invitation, and you could like just go right online and register. I'll get you an account code for, it's like $25, you know, I'll get you an account code for that. Is there any questions? I'm sorry. I'm blabbing here.
You're fine.
Kind of would like to know, with, as realtors, you know, we're dealing with short-term rental a lot. And the townships have done a significant change. Some have been more pro short-term and they've sort of streamlined their process a bit. And others have put the kibosh on it or made zoning, you know, restrictions. Are they realizing that maybe that's a mistake to restrict it? Because I'm also starting to see, and I'm going to name one township, Tobyhanna. Put a restriction on amount of short-term rental that you can have there. But at the same token, at the same meeting, we were there, they were talking about all the new infrastructure and the new playground and the ADA compliant playground, and just, they've added a lot of money. And some of these communities, Locust, Arrowhead, they pumped a tremendous amount of money into the improvement of their facilities. So I'm just kind of wondering, do we see kind of like hideout where this may change?
So it's interesting. I think it is, because fortunately it got to the bad part that you know what I mean? Like people are starting to sell their properties. And I think everybody was told that. We actually presented at Tobyhanna at one of their hearings, all the numbers like that I had at the time. I gave them everything, but you could just tell it was like they didn't care what. I mean, they were respectful. You know, they listened, but you could tell they were just going to do what they wanted to do. You know, and I think it's a lot. I hate to say it, but a lot of it's NIMBYism. It absolutely is. You know, like they'll say, we don't want these people in our backyard. We don't know who they are, like where they're. And yeah, granted, there were some boneheads at one time, but I mean, it's really changed a lot, and they don't want to hear that. You know, and I'll give you an example, which Chuck was there. Chuck Leonard. So right across from Mount Airy is the old Hawthorne property, right? So there were pools on there. They're stagnant. Their buildings are falling down. It was already zoned to be a resort. So we had somebody who wants to come in, rebuild the whole thing. They designed it in a very sustainable way. It was a great design. So I went to the meeting because they asked me to go and comment on it. They had like all these people that don't even live here who are trying to get standing to testify, right, before the township as to why that resort shouldn't be built. And there was a stream running to it. And they already addressed it how they wanted it, right, as you know, and they weren't going to discharge in it or do anything. I mean, you know, they would do anything they had to do. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God, you're paying 3 attorneys. Somebody from the state was there. There was somebody from an environmental association. Like there was some lady who was walking her dog and she was like on FaceTime, you know, on Zoom. And I'm like, you know what I mean? And it's like the taxpayer's paying for all that, you know, for a zoning guy who was an attorney for the zoning guy, the township solicitor. I'm like, holy shit, how much are you guys paying? And the 3 township, you know, supervisors set up there, they don't say anything. They're gonna let the attorney do it. I'm like, you know, and it's like some of that stuff totally needs to be reformed. It really does. And we're actually advocating for that really strongly behind the scenes. We have PRLA's, the Pennsylvania Restaurant and Lodging Association. They represent our industry. So we actually testified at a couple of hearings, and we had some like closed door conversations with the folks in Pittsburgh who were trying to regulate the industry, not regulate it, but study it and come out and say what should be done with the industry and zoning. We had a lot of conversation. They're very aware of it. And I think there's a desire to do something. Like if the House turned D, I'm sorry, if the Senate turned D, something would happen. Because it would go through the House, would go through the Senate, and Shapiro would sign it. You know, I would think maybe the Senate would block it, maybe. So we'd have to really work hard to get something passed in the Senate, you know.
I have a number of questions. The revenue that's a great job on the tourism dollars coming in. That's fantastic. But how much of the money that's generated from short-term rentals was taken from resorts and hotels? Because I know there's certain times of year where every hotel and resort is booked, but the majority of the year it's not. You know, the Christmas week of Christmas, you know, Thanksgiving week, Memorial Day, July 4th, Labor Day, you know, certain weeks you can't get a room anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But for other weeks, they're empty. The resorts are empty.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems to me that it's possible, and you have the numbers, you know, how much new money is short-term rental taking as opposed to people would go to the resorts anyway. And again, you know, you talked about people who are being money conscious. I understand that, but that's the job of the hotels and the resorts. If they're not getting, then they lower their prices to get the people to come. So
and that's what the data reflects. Yeah. The my point in saying what I said was that there wasn't enough capacity. I'm sorry if I didn't say this really clearly. In 17, there was not enough capacity for the demand. So as more short-term rentals were added, our demand, and of course the pandemic had a lot to do with it, no question. It accelerated the demand. People want short-term rentals. So what, you know, there is a certain guest that wants like a standard hotel experience. So also too, as I said, the attendance pattern is starting to turn back to what it was in 19. If it turned back to what it was 19 and we didn't have short-term rentals, that number would go back to what it did in 19.
and
That's a good question. That's a very
The
good
other
question.
thing is, resorts and hotels employ a lot of people.
They do.
But if you're taking away from the hotel and resorts, then those front desk people are either getting their hours cut, they're not getting hired, or they're getting let go. So these are our neighbors that are now out of work, or they lose their jobs, they lose their hours. The same thing with support area. If you rent, if it's a short-term rental, you got a kitchen. So yeah, so they go buy food at Weiss, but they don't go out to eat. Now I'm sure they go out to eat somewhat, but for most people, if they're and the other thing too, as we mentioned before, you get a 3-bedroom house or a 4-bedroom house, and you've got 14 people in there. Okay, of course they're going to pay $400 because they're going to split it between 3 families. Okay, and then they're going to cook and they're going to eat there, and the restaurants and the bar, the servers, the bartenders. This is all going to affect local people. And then finally, you mentioned about people should be able to do what they want with their property. There's restrictions on that's a business. This is a short-term rental business. Okay. In a lot of places, I can't open a business in my house. This is a business. You have people coming in during the week, all different people. You don't know how many people are there. They can have restrictions. Nobody enforces it. Issues with noise complaints, the police coming out when they should be worried about other things. There's a lot of resources that are getting pulled into this. And the last thing is, what's the money? You said 3% is you get from the hotel occupancy. Do they pay taxes if they don't live in Pennsylvania?
Well,
And
they're paying real estate taxes,
they pay real estate
Yeah.
taxes, but they don't pay income tax.
not if they're not
Right.
employed here. Yeah.
Okay. So again, same concept. They're people working at resorts and hotels, live in the area mostly. They pay tax to the area, they pay tax to the state. People who are doing that own these, and I don't take it away from them. It's capitalism. It's great, but they're operating a business in a residential area. This is a business. It's not. I have a house. I can't sell it, so I'm going to either rent it out monthly, which was a big part of our market back in the day, where people rented houses. Now they can't rent houses because there's no houses to rent. Well, the houses that are for rent are so expensive. All of our kids that are graduating high school or go away to college don't come back because they can't live here because there's no rentals.
Well,
because a lot of the inventory is being bought up by businesses, and more, again, same concept. John and Mary Smith have 2 short-term rentals on their property. Now they go to sell their house. Buyers are going to know that there's short-term rentals on the property. They move to the Poconos because they want nice peace and quiet. Yet, these people are having parties, people coming and going and having parties. So now they're not going to be able to sell. Or if they sell, they have to sell at a discount. Or worse yet, a short-term rental person buys it. Now there's 3 homes on that block. So, again, as a realtor, I shouldn't be saying this. I'm saying it as a citizen of the Poconos. I don't really think short-term rentals, I think it's going to do more harm in the long run than good, because I think you're going to see an impact on employment. You're going to see more and more short-term rentals being bought, and you're going to see people leaving, and we're not going to have people living here. We're going to have a lot of tourism, a lot of businesses, and the population is going to go because, like I said, the kids can't get houses. They're not going to, and we're older, we're dying off. When I go, my son's not going to be able to keep my house.
We'd like to
So
get to some of your talking points. If you want to pause, perhaps we can kind of get to some of those talking points that you're bringing up. I know I do have the economic impact up as well. Chris, if there's anything you want to reference on that, I do have that up, because there are a lot of responses to some of those. I don't know if they're questions or statements, but there are some slides that we have that can help to explain some of those statements that you've made.
Well, yeah, my point is that like right now, our resorts, they're not restricting hours, they're not laying people off. In fact, they can't find enough people to work. So that's absolutely not a problem. And my point is, we wouldn't have the tax revenues now if we didn't have short-term rentals. Now, in the long run, I don't know what's going to happen. All I can tell you is the 3 years of data and information that we have are pretty clear that there's $550 million more revenue that we can track. It's probably more like closer to $1 billion that wouldn't have been here before. So now, is it perfect? No. But my contention, to your point, which I think is a good one, is that we need to diversify our industries. Our brain drain is more so related to, it's definitely part of housing. I agree with you. The other part of it is we don't have diversified industry because they haven't reformed zoning. That's a big part of it. And my only point was that the restrictions, yeah, it is a business, okay, but it's not regulated yet. So until the state does it, and I think they are going to do that, we're left with associations that are advocating best practices like we do. If you went on our website, there's a full section about best practices related to short-term rentals. And one of the reasons why, honestly, we're putting a lot of effort and time into housing is because we understand we're part of the problem. So we want to not sit back and do nothing. We want to try to be able to do something about it, which thank God my board is really, really visionary about that. Like they get it. They want us to be able to do something. And that's how we're going to fight to try to do something. But man, as you guys all know, there's a lot of hurdles. I mean, this is a slog and it's going to take a long time. You know that.
I think, problem that I think the problem that we have with the short-term rentals and the negative part on it is just because of the pandemic, that it grew so fast.
Yep.
That nobody really saw it coming, and
We didn't.
so yeah, so the regulations and how to handle it did not have an opportunity to happen. I think that's happening now, and I think that as we go through it, like everything, it'll adjust and work itself out. But regulations needed, definitely so. But I don't think it's a part of our economy that I don't think that we can just turn our heads and say we don't want it anymore. It's the same thing with the warehousing. Everybody's complaining about all the warehouses now, but the zoning was there on that piece of land that allows warehousing.
And that was my point to saying like the property owner has rights even with that. Like I'd love to say, God, that thing in Mount Pocono is a monstrosity, but guess what? It was zoned for them to do that.
Right.
So, right.
Exactly
That
right.
was my point by saying that.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So there's a lot of ways you can look at it. I agree with what you're saying. Yes, thank you for that.
I wanted to say that I have a client that actually works up at Camelback and they just got, her and her husband just got employment up there and they're hired full-time and they could work more than 35 hours a week. They have not, they're not seasonal. They're long-term employees and there hasn't been an issue with them, even anybody coming to them to get laid off. And the other thing I wanted to say about the short-term rentals is that you're going to get people that don't like that. They're going to get, it's like, I don't want somebody using that house for a week next door to me. And the truth of the matter is you have a select few that are going to create a problem, but a majority of the people, they're going there to enjoy time with their family and their friends, and they're not bothering anybody. I mean, it's the truth.
But no, I'm just laughing. The first call I got, I'm not kidding. I sat down at my desk and my phone rang. I didn't even know what line was ringing. So I'm, oh, just pick it up. So I picked up, I said, there's somebody who wants to talk about short-term rentals. Look, I didn't even know I didn't know anything. And it was this old gentleman. I felt so bad for him. You could tell he was like in his 80s. And he just went on and on about short-term rentals and like how the sewage was running down the street and there were 25 people in there and they were setting off fireworks. And I felt so bad for the guy. So I just listened to him and then I called everybody I could call. And I thought to myself, wow, this is a bigger problem than what I thought, because other markets don't have any issues with it. I'm not saying they don't. They do.
Like when we go on vacation, that's what we prefer. So we're invading people's neighborhoods too when we leave, to go someplace. You're going down the shore, you're going out of state. A lot of people want to stay at a house because you got the conveniences and not having to have to go out to eat all the time.
The one thing we have to do is serve what the guest wants. And that's what the guest wants. Yeah, they want Kalahari, but they want that too. So we have to have both. And Bob is right. I mean, it grew much faster than anybody ever saw it would grow. I mean, we couldn't believe it either, but there was so much demand that people would have went somewhere else. It was stupid money. It's like, I hate to say it, but it was.
I think one of the reasons the townships like Pocono Township, Jackson Township went against them across the board is because it was just easier than regular.
Well,
Because
that's
they
the
were
point.
starting to make permits in Pocono Township, and make rules for it, but then they couldn't enforce it. They don't have the manpower, so I think it was just easier just to say,
And for everybody online and in here too, the point is that the townships didn't have anybody right. That's absolutely true. So I heard a lot of townships say, well, I can make up any rules I want, but the state police isn't going to respond. And God forbid if there's a problem, of course the police do. But, and and I live in Pocono Township, but I know those guys really well. Like, we talk to them all the time. We try to have good relationships with them as much, and they're pretty good. They get it. Like, the good thing about our townships and our counties is that, we don't have as much interaction with the school district, but we have some. They understand how big tourism is here. There's like other townships in the state, they always like, forget it, regulate it. Here they do get it. And some of them get it more than others, but they do have a legitimate concern,
it's gonna change. I think one of the things they knew was stop it now, but there's gonna be a lot of people up in arms about it. Regulations, like Bob said, will eventually come from the state and how to rule on these things. And then they'll start sorting it out.
Well, it's
But it
interesting.
hurts a lot of people that wanted to do it now, but.
It's interesting what you said. The reason why and this was a Pittsburgh legislator that kind of started the process of putting a commission together to study it. She did it because, as I talked to her, but she did it because I talked to her on the phone. There was an Airbnb that somebody stayed in. I hope I get this right, but there was a murder that was related to it. And I don't know all the details. And I know there was a murder, but apparently she knew someone who was affected by it. And then I think there has been a little bit of violence out there related to it, and they definitely want to regulate it. So that's kind of the way they came at it, now, which I understand. Now they're getting more and more, they're getting more sides of it. So I think this administration will look at it pretty well. And I will say this, Shapiro definitely understands how important tourism is, because like in Pennsylvania, it's like a $60 billion like industry. They came to me and is the first time I ever heard the governor was standing here, the lieutenant governor was standing here, and the secretary of DCED was standing here. We were at Barley Creek, and I was talking to them all before they went on the tour. Siger said to me, he goes, Chris, we understand GM's not going to build a plant here tomorrow, and they never will. He said, we have to embrace and celebrate the industries that are bringing dollars outside of the state into the Commonwealth. Ridge was a good governor, good tourism governor, and so was Rendell to a degree, but they would never even have said something like that. I mean, they realize we're not going to attract any major industry. It's gone. It's sad, but it's true, Maybe they will. I don't know.
So a quick comment, Chris. I'm part of the founders of the Vacation Rental Association to represent the short-term rental industry. One, I think we could do a better job getting rid of the bad actors. You take a look at 100 short-term rentals, you have 1 or 2 bad actors. And obviously we all hear them and see them, the firework, the overacting. We should have a better way of shutting those bad guys down, because the other 98% that are families, that are good people, like Robin said, you don't hear them, you don't know them, they're just enjoying it just like the rest of us.
Yeah, Robin was firing off fireworks, I heard, and doing all
Right. So,
I'm kidding.
I also wanted to say, I know that, being on the short-term rental, I don't know if you can hear me on here.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Am I, nobody else was talking at this moment, right? Oh, I hear somebody, sorry.
Jess was talking. Jess, did you want to say something? I'm
I
sorry.
did, but I mean, I can wait. I was just, I've been on the short-term rental task force in the Pocono area for about 5 years now. And, I mean, lots of, information has come my way regarding the short-term rentals. And, I was surprised to learn that, something that we've been doing in the area for, I mean, since the 1800s, right? So it's
Yeah.
not something that's new. It's just the publicity has increased substantially with all of the technology that we have. And I certainly have learned that noise and garbage, those have been the two biggest complaints. And with the noise, there are systems that you can put in place. Noise aware is one of them. It's actually a device that the owner can be notified to recognize the decibels that are coming from the house. And then garbage, of course, I mean, something that should be locked up, but I believe are a lot fewer issue houses. And we've even had it reported recently that people are calling and making false claims about the houses because they don't
Wow.
like to hear. Yes, Tobyhanna Township, I talked to them up there and they said that they're getting false complaints and tracing it back, and just because people don't want them. And I just wrote down some notes about some of the talking points. We've been told for years that the hotel industry cannot sustain the amount of tourists that we have coming here. I mean, tourism essentially is our primary industry here, right? I mean, it employs the majority of our people here, us included. And I would say all of us have a family member that works in the tourism industry. I know the one gentleman was saying, at the hotels, but our contractors, our cleaning people. I mean, it's really endless. All of the crossings out, like all of these places are fed by the tourists that come here. And if the hotels cannot sustain the industry that's incoming, then we would be losing more of, the impact that we see economically over the last couple of years. And I know for me, in 2022, the amount of STR buyers was substantially higher than it is in 2024. We're not seeing, I mean, I feel like almost every house, it was a question. Can you do STRs here? I don't know about you guys, but that's not a question I'm seeing on every listing anymore. So it's definitely cooled off a little bit, I think. And a lot of people are holding off due to certain ongoing ordinances that we have. But I just wanted to speak on a few of those items because there is a lot of data on the Pocono Mountain website as well as the Realtor website directly. And we just want to make sure that we're able to properly educate our clients, the public, in regards to what they can do to minimize the issues that may arise from them doing the short-term rentals. If they're going to do the short-term rentals, we don't really get to dictate what they are and aren't going to do, but we can try to help them to have a successful business. If that's what we want to say, we can call it a business for sure. It is in many areas considered a business. But there's many things that we can do to minimize the ramifications that people might be experiencing. So excuse my raspy voice.
And just Jess made a point, and then the gentleman, but we do have a full research suite on our website that we update all the time with a pretty heavy dashboard that has all this information on it. So, and we do have short-term rental pages on our website too at poconomountains.com. So it has all as much information as we could put on there. But yeah, it's unfortunate the bad actors are really kind of, people have a long memory on that, which I get it. I'm sorry, sir, go ahead.
Thank you. This has been a great presentation. So thanks for coming here and
My
taking
pleasure.
the time
Thanks
to
for having
do
me.
it. You had brought up a point earlier about Microsoft, and then I heard somebody else mention we've been pretty aware of the housing shortage here locally. And I just was wondering if you had any ability to influence, or maybe even if you're aware of any initiatives to ramp up new construction
So that,
for
thank you.
single house,
Thank you for
single
that.
family home.
Thank you for that question. So I know this is like a separate item, but I want to answer your question directly. There is a project hopefully going to happen on 6/11 that will help a little bit. I don't know when, but we'll see. The second piece is that if I could take 2 seconds to kind of give you some background. So when we started to After Bob promised me that the train was coming, and I went like this, I thought, okay, we have more time now. So what we did was, so one of the things we did was everything everybody's saying, okay, like we understood that we had a part to play in the short-term rental increase that has affected people's quality of life. And we could have just said, "Ooh, let's get the tax and be done with it," but we thought, no, we don't want to do that. We have to do something about it. So our board, thank God, was very supportive of that. And they're all business people, they get it. So they said, what can we do? So what we did was, I don't know if you remember, do you remember the ERAP program during the pandemic? So there was a rental continuation program. So we had somebody, I'm chair of the Pocono Mountains United Way. So we had somebody who was handling that program. And he did a really great job with it. Smart guy. He's way smarter than I am. He's always the smartest guy in the room. He might be smarter than Bob, but I doubt it. So he's like really, he's a really, really, really smart guy. So I got together with the president and CEO, and this was 2 years ago. And I said, look, each county's different. There's information. It's totally different everywhere. So we just set them out for 2 years. And we compiled all types of information based upon what the housing situation looks like in our 4-county area. And we paid them. The Pocono Mountains Visitors Bureau paid them. So when it came to the end, basically, I'm skipping a lot here, but we're happy to give you any information you want that we have. It came down to we need a private-public partnership to develop workforce and attainable housing. And basically, they just need to be laser beamed on developing that, bringing developers in that can do it, all types of housing. Also, too, if there's federal and state tax incentives, researching that. So if we do attract a developer, and a lot of them, they're pretty savvy, because I've had conversations with some of them. Some of them know all the state and federal programs available. Some of them don't. They all have varying, but have somebody here on the ground that can help them, could wade through like some of the local, here's what you need in this township, here's what you need in this township. So it would be a private-public partnership that we would term like a community development corporation. And on November 20th at Kalahari, that's what this event's all about. It's about bringing everybody together to push out this possible solution, because we don't want to have another meeting to just glorify the problem. Like, we all know it's a problem, so let's do something about it. And then we're going to go to all 4 counties and ask them for seed money, and we'll probably put some in it too. And we're trying to raise money in the community. Like, we went to all the banks, we're going to the hospitals. So I'll tell you, off the record, the hospitals told me, now they won't say this on the record, because let me back up. We did a public affairs program called NEPA Focus. It'll run in this market on every station. Our first program is totally related to our housing issues that we have. And I can send you the link to that so you guys can see it if you'd like to look at it and get a little bit more information. And when I talked to them privately, they both said, Lehigh Valley told me that he said to me, look, we can't expand our hospital here. And I said, why not? He said, because we can't find housing for nurses and doctors. I said, what? I said, yeah, we can't. Now, St. Luke's, he told me the same thing, but he wouldn't say it on the record. He would say it to me privately, and I understand why. They don't want that out there, right? But they still expanded their footprint pretty aggressively, and they did a nice job. They're really nice to work with too. They're great people. They both are. Both hospital systems are great. So anyway, we wanted to get all them together. We want to get every nonprofit in all 4 counties that are affected by this, because the other thing we found out too is every social issue that we have, housing is at the root of it somewhere. Okay, homelessness, addiction, like housing is somehow at the root of it. And the other point too is, like, I appreciate what Jess said, because it's true. We do have a great hospitality industry here. It employs a lot of people, 65% of labor income, but we need to diversify. We have to. So we can't do this until we start. So hopefully, all that long-winded to say, that's what this summit is going to hopefully do, is to first shine a light on it, propose a solution, raise money with this private-public partnership, and have this, whoever the staff is there, 3 to 4 people, laser beamed on developing housing, workforce and development housing in our market. That's all they're going to do. They won't be distracted, but that's enough. They won't be distracted by anything else like the train because we know it's coming. But they'll be able to do everything that, like, because when we met with the EDC here in Monroe, they have their hands full with everything else. Yes, they support more housing, obviously, but they can't do it. So all the other EDCs in the 4 counties can't. So that would be our second thing: is can we form a EDC that's all 4 counties? Because we're a 4-county organization. I got to tell you, that's a lot of political clout. If we had a 4-county EDC with a 4-county community development corporation, and us, that's pretty powerful because that's a pretty big delegation in the House and Senate. All the chambers are dying on the vine. They're not doing anything. They can't. They're models. I feel bad for them, but there should be a 4-county chamber too. If there were all 4 of us out there advocating, because we need infrastructure too. I mean, they neglected this area forever. Like, you go down, because I have a home in Hershey, because I commute back and forth. My son was in high school at the time when I came up here. Oh my God, like, there's infrastructure freaking everywhere. When I worked for Hershey, we would never let the state get away without doing it. I mean, we would go out there and say, look, we need this done. And they did it. Like, up here, I don't know what the hell they were doing for decades, but there's like nothing here, which is, to me, is crazy.
This area wasn't prepared for the influx of people just moving here to live full time. And then the vacation business, we weren't, a 2-lane road on a Friday night when you got everybody coming up from New York and Jersey. I mean, we all see what 80 looks like on like a Friday at 2 o'clock.
Well,
I mean, it's bumper to bumper.
That's a good point. The other thing too is, like, there was a lot of fighting about the you know what? I understand why questions were brought up, and they should have been, but man, it delayed the project. Now you're going to pay tens of millions of dollars more, and you ticked off millions of guests that maybe will not come back because they don't want to sit in the line for 2 hours. It's like you're not winning by not progressing, like there are other places. And the other thing too is, when the guest goes to Hershey, because I worked for Hershey Entertainment Resorts for 20 years, when the guest goes to Hershey, they come through here. They come through 80, they pick up 81 to go, or 78 then to go to Hershey. You're pissing all them off too, and it's, if you're going to have an economy related to tourism, you got to make it convenient for the guests to be here.
Just to go back to short-term rentals, Lehigh Valley has, and this is for regular rentals, they require, if the owner of the building or the owner of the house lives more than 50 miles from that property, they have to have a property manager or someone on site to handle issues. So that might solve a lot of problems, because the guy in, New York that has a house where there's a problem, he's not going to do anything. He's not going to be able to do anything about it. But if there's a local guy that's responsible, and the township makes them responsible in order to give them a permit, that at least that guy can go to the property and
You already have that.
they have that. They have that.
It's
Okay.
interesting
Okay.
that you brought up a good point though.
That's a good idea. Thank you.
You brought up a really good point though, that a lot of the townships, probably not enough, but a lot of the townships have to, the licensing fee is starting to go up now. So I want to say it's like $1,000 or $2,000 a year now. So they're starting to get more. I'm sorry, you just kicked it off and you said that they're starting to get more revenue now related to it. Probably it's not enough, probably in some instances, but if what I hear from short-term rental folks who own it, and I understand where they're coming from when they say this. They live out of town, right? They pay real estate taxes here, but they have no say in local government. But what can you do? But a lot of them do have property managers. I think a lot of them do.
That's a point.
In some ordinances, not everyone. In some ordinances, they are. We have model ordinances on our website, as we put together a model ordinance to help, like, short-term rentals. And then in our network, we did stories on that. So when people watched it out of town, we were hopeful that maybe they would watch it and then go on our website and look and see what Because, hey, we don't want the fireworks going off and knuckleheads, you know, like we want somebody who's going to respect our towns and communities. The other thing too is we started to do, because somebody had mentioned it, we spend $400,000 a year picking up trash. So all the trash is picked up on 80, 380, all the ingress and egresses, we picked that all up, yes. That all comes out of the hotel tax. So, and when we can get secondary routes in the 4 counties, we get them too. We work with the Waste Authority here in Monroe County, and then we employ Adopt a Highway. Like if you go down 80, you'll see our sign. That's because we pay Adopt a Highway to pick everything. Oh, it's horrible. When I first
Not
came,
like any other state, you don't see that.
when I first came up here, when I took over for the guy, he drove me around. And I don't, you guys probably remember, you go off 299, right? And you know, you come to the big billboard. I don't know who owns that at 611. So we're in the car. I'm looking around. I'm like, holy shit, there's so much trash. I couldn't believe it. I said, what are you guys doing about the trash here? Did you guys do anything? He said, yeah, maybe you should do something about that. I'm like, you were freaking here for 10 years. Why don't you do something, you know? So like,
Oh, it's fair.
oh yeah, we got all that picked. We do pick up the
On my road,
Poconos.
I told you. Poop on 1 or 2 toilets on the side of the road. I'm like, how can this be? And it
Well,
just sits.
the other thing that happens there too, in Monroe County has a really good waste authority. A lot of that's because there aren't ordinances related to that. They're really quick to do it with short-term rentals, but they should be doing it with that stuff, you know? Oh my goodness. I can't tell you how many we've picked up since 2018, 45,000 bags of trash, 6,700 tires, syringes. We work with PennDOT too, so PennDOT helps us with the bigger stuff. That's
Don't come
I-
up here to shoot up.
I went to a meeting and somebody told me that. That's the first thing. You know,
I will say that I was at a township meeting and one of the people, you know, he had strong feelings, you know, negative feelings about
Sure,
STR.
yeah.
He was in a community that it had always been, you know, so it did ramp up. Obviously during COVID, there was a bit more, you know, minutia going on during that time. But he was grateful because his house property value was able to, he was in a financial bad way thanks to COVID. But when he got back on his feet, he was able to refinance his house for way more
Oh, good.
than what he was able to purchase. So that was an interesting take on it.
Mhm.
And he
Huh.
also said, you know,
Think of that.
I may get the occasional jerk that's next door that's, you know, there was a naked person in Salmenting Trails running around, you know, we don't need to see that. But he said, you know what, I'd rather have the one weekend of the crazy than live next door to the person where there is no regulation in the community with their ordinances and just with HOA rules, with the junky cars and the horde and the couch out front. You know, he said he would rather have that than have that one weekend out of the year or 2 weekends out of the year where there's an issue. So it's a perspective. Yeah.
I think it's look at it in balance. I understand their strong feelings. You know, I get it. Yes, sir. What can I do for you?
Somebody that's on the call on Zoom had asked me to ask you the
Yes.
following. Can you give us a rundown of Monroe County municipalities that allow short-term rentals specifically and which zonings allow it? So I guess
I can
maybe
get that for you.
you
Yeah.
can, is there a place where that maybe on your website, is that something that you monitor and track?
We do, but I'm not sure it's on our website, but I can get that for you. I could get it through Ricky. I mean, we have other resources we can get it. We know some of them. We don't know all of them, but I can get that for you. I know one thing, we definitely worked with the county to get a model ordinance in place because the townships, Game doesn't wanted to see it. And I know they took our model ordinance, didn't have anything about property management or anything like that, but, and some of them kind of like changed it over time, but I can get that for you. Yes, I talked to them.
Just because we, today it could be different. So it's still important for you and your clients to do their due diligence.
Yeah, the one thing, so there are 20 municipalities in Monroe. And yeah, that's a public ordinance, has to be advertised before the meeting. Some of them have that on their website, some of them don't. I can have somebody look at it if they don't have it to get it. We should have it if we don't. It might be ours, you know, like I don't know that.
But again, we change the time. Updated, now you just represented yourself, so I call the township always, every single time I write a contract.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point to make. The best thing to do to township or school, I was on a school board for 18 years, the best thing to do is look on their website because they have to advertise stuff. They're gonna do wholesome, I don't want to change something. They do, I'll tell you what, the worst part of, I don't want to get on my soapbox here, the worst part of not having a local paper that's functional or television that cares is they can do stuff like that. And you won't know they're doing it until it's done, but they're doing it legally. They know a lot of people don't go on websites and look at agendas. They know that,
Yeah, thank
Sorry I was blabbing so much. But
No, this is perfect. We want you to blab.
No, Jeff, do you have anything do you want to talk about or?
No, the municipalities, was just something I didn't know if we were able to run down that. I do know that, the most recent update I got was with the Polk Township change. I think that's the most recent one that they're restricting now, that just came out. It's actually been on their website, in meeting minutes for a little while, but they didn't until just last month. They updated that they're only going to be allowing, actually that they're not permitting short-term rentals in R1 zones. I'm sorry, it's allowed, but then they're not permitting it in the R1 zone any longer. So that's something I know that people have really just been assuming that it's allowed in Polk Township, and rightfully so. Based on their website, unless you reach out to them, but they hadn't had anything published on their website. And I searched through the meeting minutes a few months ago and reached out to them, and they said, oh, it's no longer allowed in R1. And then a few months later, they came out with an official modification to their ordinance. So that was one thing that, I kind of wanted to talk about. I know that with many of the different municipalities, it's not just allowed or not allowed. It's sometimes allowed in the different zoning. So, whether it's, like certain districts, what, permitted in different districts where it could just be like a village district or commercial district. So, just not looking to what, sometimes it won't be very clear on the websites. And I think that's why it's really important to reach out to the municipalities directly. I don't reach out all the time if I know that it's allowed in certain districts or not allowed at all. But that was just something in general that I wanted to kind of touch on. And I know that we don't usually put that sort of thing in writing. So I don't have it all in a list written down, but I don't know if you have something that you have access to. I know.
I'll double check because I'm not sure whether we do or not. I'll be honest, I don't know off the top of my head, but
Yeah.
I will check. If not, that would be easier. That would be easy enough for us to do.
Okay.
People in the market to buy would find good use in that too. And
Oh,
that
yeah.
would be a great resource for us to be able to point them toward.
We should probably do it for all 4 counties, because it would probably be helpful for all 4. So I'll just, if we don't have it, I'll make sure we do. I will. I have to update some of those slides, but I will, and I'll send them to Jess. But there is a lot of stuff on our website too. So I'll include the link for Jess on that if you guys ever want to go, and I'll include the invite for the more front doors. And hopefully that I'll see. If Bob Hayes not there, it'll be total flop. If he comes, if he comes, it'll be awesome. So. No, thank you guys. Thank you.
No, appreciate having you here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Jess.
Yes.